It's now 2025, and this year I want to go from a 7 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10 level athlete, on a scale from typical American to your favorite fitness YouTuber. This series will show you how I'm making real progress month by month, so that by the end of this you have a good impression of what it's really like to work on fitness goals over the long run. Because there are so many unsustainable X number of days self-castigating David Goggins-style training routine challenges on the internet that miss the point of how to really make lasting change, which is from boring and daily effort that's also sustainable over many years. Because let's be honest, if your last name isn't literally Goggins, which I suppose it's not, or you would be running up some mountain or through some desert right now instead of watching this video, then it's really unrealistic to uphold the level of intensity of such a short challenge over the long run. And so in this case, boredom and patience are the remedy to rushing and burning out. So, in order to start this series off, I want to answer the three following questions. First, what is the goal? Then, what is the plan? And finally, how do I make sure I will follow through? And these questions really follow the structure of my model for making progress that I've covered in my series about purpose and fulfillment. And this is no coincidence because I live by that model. This means that this series is both an application and thus extension of my other series, as well as a standalone fitness journey for everyone that's on that journey too. So in order to answer these questions, I will go through the model again and answer these questions as we make our way through the model. So the place we start is here, and it stipulates that we as humans have two main drivers to do anything in life really, which is to survive in our world and to find purpose in it. And these drivers or goals or main quests or whatever you want to call them, these can be achieved through satisfying the needs in 5 different categories. And I didn't make those categories up, they come from Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid. And what's important to know is that the wish to satisfy all of the different needs that fall under those categories is what we think of as our values when we do the introspection. So the first thing I want to do is to talk about how sports can contribute to each of those categories, which will then also give a rise to plenty of goals you could want to achieve in order to satisfy all of those different needs, which then get processed in our knowledge section of this model. And the way it works is that all of these highest order goals that come in here, like G1, G2, etc., they get broken down into sub-goals and further sub-goals, which can really depend on each other in a lot of different ways. But the thing that results at the end are some sub-goals that are so broken down that you can easily formulate a plan with it, that then gets shipped into the action part of this model, in which I'll just briefly show how I'm holding myself accountable for actually following that plan. So starting with the bottom category of our physiological needs. And I think that here the effects on sports on our physiology are pretty straightforward. It basically improves our health on all fronts, and I think this doesn't need repeating. Maybe you've heard of the saying that people who exercise regularly may live 10 years longer, but they spend all of those years exercising. Well, I think that this saying really misses the point. Because if you get those 10 years back at the end, then it's an investment with no real costs. And what's more is that it improves your quality of life across all of the other years. So there's really no downside in doing some amount of sports. Now, as for safety, being physically fit might really enhance your sense of security by making you feel more prepared to handle threats when it comes down to it. Personally though, this isn't a big motivation for me, so let's move on. Now, in the same way that love and belonging is split between survival and finding purpose, sports can also help in both aspects. For the survival part, I think it doesn't need saying that being fit makes you more attractive, which is an advantage here. Maybe you've heard of the term pretty privilege. It's the idea that we generally tend to have a positive image of someone who we deem attractive, just as a default. So if you're the attractive one, everything you have to do in order to navigate your social interactions is to not destroy that image, instead of having to create it from the ground up, which is a lot harder and also not always possible, for example, if you're navigating shallow social waters. And let's be honest, it's also just more fun to be around attractive people, right? So all in all, it just gives you an edge in society. For the purpose part here, sports can really give you a great sense of belonging to a group of people or a community in general. If you regularly work out at the same place or even train with the same group of people, then it's an easy way to connect with them. But even if you're only working out alone, the next time you meet someone who's also into sports, it gives you an instant topic to connect over. So it's really a nice and simple way to bond with people. But now, for a fourth category of esteem, Sports is really powerful because doing sports regularly is really difficult. So if you manage to do this, then it gives you so much evidence that you are able to do difficult things, which is really great for self-esteem. But on top of that, it's also one of the only areas in life where other people can see that you have been working hard just by looking at you. They don't even have to get to know you. And because people respect hardworking people, just like the pretty privilege of looking more attractive, looking more hardworking can give you a hardworking privilege in the form of respect and social status. And let's be honest, who doesn't want a bit more respect and social status? And now the final category, self-actualization. This category is all about working towards meaningful goals, which means that if sports is one of your goals, then it perfectly aligns with that category. But of course, sports is not special in that aspect. Every meaningful goal would do the trick. And if I'm honest, I only find it meaningful because it improves other areas of my life. But apart from that, there is something really nice about pursuing sports in particular. And it's the fact that you're able to measure your progress really objectively. It's not something complicated and subjective like being smart or kind or funny. So in that sense, the fulfillment potential of pursuing sports is really great. Now, can all of these needs be satisfied through different means? Of course they can. You could maintain a reasonably healthy body just by eating well and sleeping enough. You could arrange your schedule so as to not be alone at night, which is also cumbersome, but it's possible. You can become more attractive through a lot of other positive character traits. You can find belonging in a lot of different communities, and you could find esteem and self-actualization through pursuing or succeeding in a lot of different goals in other areas of life. But personally, I grew up with sports and I really like to run, so it's just a very practical way to enhance all of these areas in my life at once. Okay, now that I've listed a bunch of different things you could want to achieve through sports, here are the things that are important to me personally. So, starting with the bottom, I want to get super healthy, which means low body fat, good muscle structure and no injury, etc. All of the good stuff. So, when it comes to love and belonging, I want to get more attractive, which is pretty straightforward, I think. But then I also want to bring out the masculine, and I noticed I forgot to mention this before. But so in a relationship, I really enjoy the gap between the masculine and the feminine, which is why widening that gap is always nice to me. And notice that I'm not including the connection part of love and belonging, because it doesn't really combine that well with the other goals, and I think I'm already at a great place with that. Now, for the esteem part, there is the self-esteem part, where I want to be hardworking, I want to be disciplined and train myself to do hard things. But then I also want this to reflect on my body, which is the hardworking privilege I talked about. And finally, there's the self-actualization, where I want to get indestructible, which is really more a feeling I'm chasing than an actual thing, but more on that in a second. And then I want to get fast when running. And this may sound weird to you, but I really enjoy the fact that when I'm running and I'm in the zone, then reality just seems to zoom by my side, which is always so fun to me. So yeah, I want to, again, chase that feeling some more. Now, not included are, as I said, to make connections. I don't want to feel safer. I have no injury that I have to do sports to recover from or to prevent it from breaking out again. I don't want to get better in some competition or sports game like tennis or basketball or I don't know. And there's no competitions I want to win because my income doesn't depend on it. Okay, now that I've covered all of the highest order goals, it's time to break them down one step and cover the middle ground. And for me, the middle ground means hitting a nice balance between strength, endurance and flexibility. And these areas are all important to me because not only do they each contribute to a lot of the goals I have, but they also depend on each other. And I want to explain what I mean by that. So cardiovascular fitness really makes you less exhausted in general, which means that even after a long day of anything really, you still have the energy to do your workout. In addition, because you are more resilient to exhaustion, it means that during your strength training sessions, you can do more exercises in a shorter amount of time before you feel that you've done enough sports for today. Which means that you can do more exercises and, well, it saves you time. But having strong muscles and joints means that you have a greater capacity to train your cardiovascular system. because it eliminates the weak muscle failure point, which is a term I made up, but it's basically the idea that something starts to hurt somewhere before you even feel exhausted. And finally, flexibility just reduces your risk of injury in general. And in my experience, I need to do mobility exercises in order to regenerate, or else it won't be long before I have some kind of injury from overtraining. So even though stretching doesn't directly contribute to any of the goals I mentioned, caring about it is really just a natural byproduct of the other two areas. Now, coming back to my goal of becoming indestructible, there's something about doing cardio that not a lot of people talk about. And it's the fact that the resilience it brings is really profound on 3 different levels. The first one is the mental level, because doing endurance training can be really hard at some point. Sometimes you have to push through really uncomfortable situations. So if you do it regularly, you'll know that you are a hardworking person. The second level is the physical one, and I think that here lies really the big difference between gym goers who look just big but have just kind of fluffy muscles that are useless, and the ones who look strong and tough, like the Marines or soldiers. They don't just look strong, they give off this entirely different vibe and feel that's just, more tough and masculine. And this is what I mean by bringing out the masculine too. And the third level is what I really mean by getting indestructible, which is the general resilience it gives you to everyday life. For example, it makes you able to party much harder than everyone else, and the next day is still usable because you aren't fatigued as much. Your immune system is better, so you are less sick, and in general you just have more energy to also do all of the tedious and boring stuff that just would be too exhausting otherwise. And if you ever go on a hike with friends, then you are never the one to fall behind or whose legs or feet start hurting. And what's most important is that you just don't get fat, no matter how much you eat. Okay, now that I've covered the middle ground, it's time to come to the lowest goals that I actually wrote on a piece of paper. So here I have every goal that I want to accomplish during the next year. So for each category of endurance, strength and mobility, I've defined 6 exercises or challenges or goals that I want to achieve. For endurance, I have decided that I only want to be good at running because, I just like running. This is my way of achieving cardiovascular fitness. So I've just written down 6 different distances with a time that I want to beat. And these times are based on my experience and mirror roughly the times that I've been able to achieve throughout different points in my life. Only now I want to be able to run them at the same time. For strength training, I've chosen 6 exercises that are pretty straightforward. They're just a nice measure stick to measure my overall progress on strength training. Now, for flexibility, I've chosen 6 exercises that really target my weak spots, because I'm really no good at any of those exercises. And then I have 2 miscellaneous goals. The first one is to walk 10,000 steps each day, not as an average, but really as a minimum for each day. And the second thing is that I want to finally be able to do a free handstand for at least 10 seconds. It's something I've always wanted to do, but in the past I couldn't because my mobility wasn't great enough in the upper back. So now that it's gotten better, it's finally time to learn how to do this. But now this list doesn't mean that I won't do anything else, of course, because the real goal is to satisfy my needs through those higher order goals, right? So this is really just a measure stick to measure my progress on. Okay, now that I've formulated all of the goals, it's time to package them into a plan. And currently I'm doing 3 strength sessions per week, which is a nice rhythm for me, so I don't want to touch that. This leaves me with 3 other days if I want to have 1 day off at least. But since my endurance goals are really ambitious too, I think that 3 days per week on that are really a minimum here too. So instead of dedicating separate days to mobility exercises, I want to integrate them into my other workouts, either as a warm-up or just in between exercises. Also, I heard that stretching is a great way to relax before going to bed, so maybe I'll try that out some more. And in order to really get into running, even on my strength training days, I want to do a 10-minute running warm-up on them too. And finally, I've decided to try out something a bit unique. So you know that in a normal day, there are always tons of opportunity to do something really quickly for 5 minutes. So given that, I'll choose 1 exercise each week that I can do without equipment, anywhere, anytime. And my hope is that 1 week in which I'll concentrate on doing this exercise on any time of day, just when I feel like it, is enough to make me do some progress in that exercise, just as a bonus on top. And that's pretty much it. Sticking to that routine is the plan for this year. So this leaves us with the final question: how will I actually follow through with that plan? And 2 weeks ago I found something really beautiful, which is this annual planner here, which I bought because I had the idea that I could color each square green, because I had the idea because I had the idea that I could color each square green if I stuck to my training routine on that day, which then turned into a line for visual reasons. And the hope is that by the end of the year I have a green ribbon all across this piece of paper. And the 7th day here on Saturday, well, this is my rest day, so I had the idea to combine this with the actual nightmare of cleaning my house every week, which means that if I don't want my ribbon to get cut up into 6-day pieces, then this means that every week I'll have to do the annoying task of cleaning the house, which then connects all of the different parts, which hopefully will look very nice at the end of this year. And so to define whether a given day counts towards done or not done, I have decided that it's more about the active effort and the time I spend into my workout, and not that I actually follow the plan on a day-to-day basis. For example, if I can't run on a given day, then I'll just go on a 2-hour walk. Or if the gym is closed, then I'll find alternative exercises I can do at home. On days, however, where I'm really sick and can't do sports, I've decided that my active effort would not go into pushing myself to do something anyway, but rather to push myself to recover really hard. So I'll continue the ribbon in a red color if on that day I was able to lie in bed without doing any work and without any screens, so only music and social interactions are allowed, so that I can recover as fast as possible. And I hope that this definition of sticking to the plan will give me enough leeway to make it through the entire year. So for the next 12 months, I will upload a progress video every month in which I'll cover the progress that I've made towards my goals. And I hope that in a year I can make a big resume video out of that, where I cover everything along that journey from now to then. So if you want to follow that journey, I suggest you subscribe and turn on the bell, or I guess you just remember. And if you found the model I talked about interesting, then you can also watch the series I made about it. Anyway, I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!